The grand hall of the Galactic Concord was filled with leaders from many worlds. Tall beings with glowing eyes stood next to short creatures with scales and feathers. All of them were waiting for the Empress of the Andari Empire to speak. This meeting was important. War was spreading in the outer systems, and the galaxy needed peace. Commander Elias Reed sat quietly at Earth's table. He was the only human present. His black uniform looked simple compared to the shining robes and armor of the other ambassadors, but his calm eyes showed strength. He had served in many missions and was respected, even by those who did not trust humans. At the far end of the hall, Empress Rhianna stood on a silver platform. She was tall, graceful, and powerful. Her long dark hair shimmered like starlight, and her eyes glowed softly with energy. Her voice was firm as she addressed the council, speaking about unity, justice, and the future of the galaxy. Suddenly, a young voice echoed through the hall. "I wish to speak." Everyone turned. A small figure stepped forward. It was a young girl, no more than 10 years old by human standards. She had violet skin, silver-white hair, and wore a royal robe. She was Princess Leora, the daughter of Empress Rhianna. Guards moved to stop her, but the Empress raised her hand. "Let her speak," she said calmly. Liora walked forward bravely. Her eyes were wide, but she did not tremble. She stopped in front of the council and looked directly at Elias. "I have a request," she said clearly. "It is not for the council. It is for the human commander, Elias Reed." Elias stood slowly, confused but respectful. "Yes, Princess?" Leora took a deep breath. "Commander Elias, my mother's alone. The Empire is in danger. Our enemies grow stronger. The council demands she choose a husband. But they only offer men who want power, not peace." Gasps filled the hall. The Empress closed her eyes for a moment. Leora continued, "You once saved me. You risked your life for mine. You are brave, kind, and honest. I have watched you. I've learned from you. So I ask you now in front of the galaxy. ... She bowed her head deeply. "Please marry my mother. Please become my father. Rule the galaxy with her. We need you." Room fell silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even Elias stood frozen, his heart beating hard. I had faced many dangers in his life: pirates, alien beasts, even black hole storms. But he had never expected this. Finally, Empress Rhianna stepped down from her platform. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed surprise. She walked to her daughter and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Leora," she said softly, "this was not planned." "I know," Leora replied, still looking at Elias. "But it is true. He is the one we need." The Empress looked at Elias. "Commander, I apologize. My daughter speaks from the heart. I did not ask her to do this, but I do not disagree." Elias opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked around. Every eye in the room was on him. He took a breath. "I am honored," he said slowly, "but this is a great matter. Choice that affects not only your family, but your people, my world." The Empress nodded. "Of course, this is not something to answer now." She turned to the council. "This meeting is paused. We will continue after proper discussion." She looked at Elias again. "Will you walk with me?" Elias nodded. They walked through a quiet garden in the palace. The sky above was full of stars. Strange birds sang in the trees, and the air smelled sweet. "Your daughter is very brave," Elias said. Rhianna smiled. "She always speaks her mind. She remembers the day you saved her on Zetherix." Elias nodded. "I only did my duty. A child should never be a target in war." "Still, she trusts you," Rhianna said. "And so do I." He paused. "The Empire is in trouble. Many noble houses want power. They push for me to choose a husband. They want to control the throne through marriage." "And if you don't choose," Elias asked, "they will divide the Empire, fight each other. The galaxy will suffer." Elias looked up at the stars. "And you think I can stop that? You are neutral. You're strong. You're respected. Even by those who fear humans. Most of all, you are not from here. You cannot be used by them." Elias sighed. This is not a simple choice. No, she said. It is not. They walked in silence for a moment. Then Rihanna looked at him. I will not force this. I will not ask for your answer tonight. But I will say this. I believe you can help more than you know. Back in his private quarters, Elias sat alone. He looked at the stars outside the window. His mind was full of thoughts. He remembered the mission where he met Leora. Pirates had attacked the royal ship. Elias, leading a rescue team, had found the young princess trapped under debris. He had carried her to safety while the ship burned around them. He hadn't thought about that day in a long time. Now that same child had asked him to become part of her family. Not out of politics, but out of hope. It was not just about a throne. It was about peace, about unity, about something greater, he sighed. I didn't come here to become a ruler, he whispered to himself. But maybe the galaxy needs something different. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the council chamber, unseen figures watched and whispered. Not everyone was happy about Leora's request. A plan was forming. If the Empress truly chose the human, there would be resistance. There would be danger. But Leora did not know this. In her room, she smiled and looked at a drawing she had made, her, the Empress, and Elias, standing together under a shining star. Maybe now, she whispered, we can be a family. The royal palace of Caltherian Prime floated above the surface of the planet like a shining jewel in space. Its towers reached toward the stars, and its gardens glowed with flowers from many worlds. Inside the palace, behind golden doors, Commander, Elias Reed stood in a private chamber with Empress Rihanna. She stood near the window, her hands gently resting on the railing. The stars outside reflected in her deep eyes. There was no crown on her head now, only a simple robe. Her face looked softer than before. Elias waited quietly. After a few moments, Rihanna spoke. I never planned for this, Elias, my daughters. Words came from her heart, but her timing was unexpected. Elias gave a small smile. She is brave. I respect her honesty. Rihanna turned to face him. Leora has always dreamed of a complete family. She never knew her father. He died in the early days of the war, before she could even walk. I'm sorry, Elias said. Quietly, the Empress nodded. Thank you. His death made me strong, but also lonely. Since then, I have ruled alone. But now the council pressures me to choose a consort. It's not for love, but for power. Elias crossed his arms. They want control? Yes, Rihanna replied. If I marry one of them, their house gains influence. Others will rebel. Blood will spill. I have delayed the choice, but I cannot delay forever. She looked at Elias carefully. When Leora spoke your name, I felt something I have not felt in years. Hope. Elias looked thoughtful. You want peace? But peace needs more than just hope. It needs trust and a strong heart. Rihanna stepped closer. That is why I am speaking with you now. I do not ask for an answer tonight. I only ask that you remain here for a time as my advisor. Help me understand Earth's view. Help me calm the council. And perhaps see if this strange idea could truly work. Elias raised an eyebrow. You want me to join your court? For now, yes, she replied. It is not a marriage. Not yet. But it will give us time to learn, to understand, and to show the council that unity is possible. Elias thought deeply. He had served in battles. He had trained soldiers. He had studied diplomacy, but he had never imagined standing beside an empress. Still, something in her eyes told him she was sincere, and something in his own heart whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was his next mission. He nodded slowly. Very well, I'll stay. I'll observe. I'll help as best I can. A small smile touched Rihanna's lips. Then let us begin. In the days that followed, Elias was given a room in the palace. It was large and beautiful, filled with smooth lights and quiet music. Servants came often, offering food and robes, but Elias remained humble. He kept his Earth uniform, choosing simplicity over luxury. Each morning, he attended royal meetings with Rihanna and her advisors. He listened to reports of border threats, trade disputes, and unrest among noble houses. The empire was strong, but cracks were showing. Elias noticed something else. Certain lords whispered behind closed doors. Their eyes watched him with cold interest. Not all were pleased by his presence. Still, he spoke clearly when asked. He shared ideas from Earth: equal law, shared rule, respect for all species. Some nobles scoffed, but others nodded. Empress Rhianna often looked at Elias during these meetings. She listened to him with care, and slowly the tension in the room began to ease. Leora would often visit him after council meetings. She would sit beside him and ask questions about Earth, about animals, about books. She laughed when he described pizza and rainstorms. She listened closely when he told stories of growing up near the sea. You speak softly, she once said. But people listen to you, Elias smiled. Sometimes the quiet voice can be the strongest. But not everyone was pleased. In a dark chamber beneath the palace, a group of shadowy figures met in secret. They wore long cloaks and golden rings. One of them, Lord Marin, spoke with anger. This human must not remain. If the Empress chooses him, our power ends. Another Lady Vexera replied, he is clever. The people like him. Even the outer colonies are talking about him. He must be removed. Quietly. Marin nodded. We must prepare. Soon we will strike. Meanwhile, Elias continued to walk through the palace gardens with Rhianna. They spoke often, not as Empress and advisor, but as two souls trying to understand each other. One night, they stood on a high balcony. The stars above were bright, and the city below sparkled like a field of diamonds. Do you miss Earth? Rhianna asked. Yes, Ilias replied, but not in the way I expected. I miss the smell of the forest. I miss the ocean. I miss the sound of old music. She nodded. I miss things too. I miss walking in the rain without guards. Miss speaking without thinking of politics. He looked at her. Do you think this can work? Human consort? I don't know, she said. Honestly, but I know this. You are honest, brave, and thoughtful. That is more than I can say for many rulers. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Rhianna added, the council will call a vote soon. They want me to choose a consort. If I delay. Again, they may act on their own. Elias nodded. Then we have little time. The next day, a message arrived from the Council of Elders. A grand vote would take place in 7 days. The Empress must present her choice or allow the council. To select one for her, the palace grew tense. Servants whispered. Guards doubled in number. The halls felt colder, but Elias remained calm. He studied every file on the council members. He spoke to palace staff, learning who was loyal and who was not. He trained quietly in the garden, keeping his body and mind ready, Rhianna noticed. You are preparing for something, she said. I always prepare, he replied, especially when others prepare too. One night, Leora entered Elias's room quietly. She held a small necklace in her hand, a simple crystal on a silver chain. This was my father's, she said. My mother kept it for me. Stepped closer. I want you to have it. Elias shook his head gently. That is yours. No, she said. I believe you're meant to protect both of us now. He took the necklace carefully. Thank you, Leora. I will protect you no matter what. The days passed quickly. Soon, the great hall was filled again. The council sat on their golden seats. Nobles from across the stars gathered to watch. The Empress stood at the center. Beside her stood Elias, and in the shadows, danger watched and waited. The grand hall of the Andari Empire was once again full. Delegates, nobles, warriors, and watchers from many parts of the galaxy had gathered. The golden walls shimmered. Soft lights floated near the ceiling. But despite the beauty, the air was full of tension. The day of the council vote had come. At the center of the hall stood Empress Rhianna. Her crown rested lightly on her head, and her long robe flowed like water. Beside her stood Commander Elias, Reed, calm and strong in his dark uniform. His hands were behind his back, and his eyes carefully watched the crowd. Sitting in a high seat was Lord Marin, one of the council's most powerful members. His face was still, but his fingers tapped his armrest slowly, a quiet signal to those loyal to him. Today's vote would decide. It's more than just a consort for the Empress. It could change the galaxy. Earlier that morning, Elias had met with a small group of Rihanna's most trusted people. Among them was General Kale, a tall woman with short silver hair, and Master Aaron, an old advisor who had served the Empire for 40 years. Elias, General Kale said, we believe the Obsidian. Vale may try to strike during the vote. Elias raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Master Aaron nodded. They cannot allow the Empress to choose a consort they do not control. If she picks you, their plans fall apart.
What will they do?
Elias asked. They may try to cause fear or confusion, Kale said. Or worse, attack directly. Elias looked at the city map spread before them. Then we prepare for everything. In the grand hall, Rihanna raised her voice. It rang out across the marble floor. Today, I fulfill my duty, she said. As ruler, I will speak my decision. But first I ask for peace and silence, so that my voice may reach every corner of the galaxy. The room grew quiet. She looked toward Elias, then turned back to the council. I have heard your demands, she said. I have listened to every house. I have studied every name. Her voice became softer but stronger. But I will not choose a consort based on fear or pressure. I will choose with reason, with wisdom, the good of all in my heart. Murmurs moved through the crowd. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from the upper floor. A guard fell from the balcony. Screams broke out. Elias moved fast, pulling Rihanna behind a tall pillar. General Kale rushed in with soldiers. More guards ran too. Protect the Empress. Then, small round machines dropped from the ceiling. Biodrones. The drones opened like black flowers, releasing clouds of green mist, poison gas. Someone shouted. Elias acted quickly. Seal the vents. Shut the main doors. He pulled a device from his belt and activated a shield bubble around Rihanna and Leora, who had run into the hall behind her mother. The Obsidian Veil had attacked. All. Across the palace, alarms began to ring. Troops loyal to Lord Marin stormed through secret passages. They wore black armor and carried stun weapons, but Elias had prepared. General Kale's forces met them at every point. Hidden guards revealed themselves, defending the hall. Small turrets activated from the walls, pushing back the attackers. Meanwhile, inside the grand hall, Elias helped guide nobles and children to safety. His voice was clear and steady. This way. Keep your heads low. Stay together. Rihanna, still inside the shield, looked at him with amazement. He was not panicking. He was not afraid. He was leading, and the people were following him. Up above, Lord Marin stood from his seat. This is madness, he shouted. The Empress cannot even protect her own court. He stepped forward. She is unfit to rule. Subtly, his own guards turned on him. One of them pulled off his helmet. It was Master Aaron in disguise. You are the traitor, Aaron. Aaron said, we know everything. The secret meetings, the hidden weapons, the attack plans. Marin's face went pale before he could escape. General Kale's soldiers grabbed him. Back on the floor, Elias shut down the final drone with a blast from his stun device. The green gas faded, cleared by emergency vents. Slowly, the room calmed. People began to breathe again. Then, cheers rose. Commander Elias. Commander Elias. The nobles, the council members, even some of the royal guards began to chant his name. Empress Rihanna stepped forward, her voice strong once more. Today, you have seen not just an advisor, not just a soldier. You have seen a leader, one who thinks of the people before himself. One who acts with courage, even in the face of death. She turned toward Elias. I now make my choice. The hall became silent again. I choose Commander Elias Reed of Earth, not because he is strong, not because he is respected, but because he has proven again and again that he is loyal, wise, and good. She held out her hand. Will you stand beside me, Elias, as consort and as protector of our people? Elias looked at her. He thought of the child who had asked him to be her father. He thought of the Empress, alone in her fight for peace. He thought of the galaxy and its need for hope. He stepped forward and gently took her hand. Yes, he said, I will stand beside you. The room erupted in cheers. Even the stars outside seemed to shine brighter. Later that night, after the palace was secure and the traitors taken away, Elias sat with Rihanna and Leora in the quiet garden. Leora sat between them, smiling as she looked up at the stars. You really said yes? She whispered. Elias smiled. I did, Rihanna. Looked at him. You could have walked away. I could have, he agreed, but I didn't. He looked at them both, because sometimes you don't find your mission. It finds you. A golden sun rose over Caltharian Prime. Its light fell gently on the royal palace, shining through tall glass windows and lighting up the marble halls. But even in the peaceful glow of morning, the palace buzzed with quiet tension. Commander. Elias Reed stood before a large mirror, adjusting the dark ceremonial cloak now worn by royal consorts. It had silver threads, glowing with a soft blue light. It wasn't a uniform, but it felt heavy, not because of weight, but because of what it meant. He was no longer just a soldier or an ambassador. He was now something more outside his door. Young Princess Leora waited. She smiled as he stepped out. You look like someone from a legend, she said happily. Elias smiled. Let's hope legends know how to give speeches. You don't need to say much, Leora said. Just stand. Beside Mother, like you always do, Elias nodded. She was right. Today was the formal declaration of the new royal bond at the moment, when the Empress and her chosen consort would stand before the galaxy and receive the blessing of the Great Concord. The entire galaxy would be watching through BROADCAST satellites. But not all eyes were friendly. Inside the Hall of Stars, Empress Rihanna waited in her royal robes. Her face was calm, but her hands were folded tightly. Beside her stood the High Priestess of the Stars, an old woman with glowing tattoos and a voice like wind. The galaxy must see unity. The High Priestess whispered to Rihanna. But beware, some still plan to divide you. Rihanna gave a small nod. She already knew. After the failed coup by Lord Marin in the Obsidian Vale, many traitors were caught, but not all. Whispers still moved in the palace shadows. Even now, some powerful houses were watching closely, waiting for a mistake. But Rihanna had made her choice, and she would not turn back. When Elias entered the hall, a hush fell across the crowd. He walked beside Leora, who held his hand proudly. Hundreds of guests, from generals to alien kings, stood in their finest clothes, watching. Floating cameras moved through the air, recording every moment. Rihanna turned as he approached. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, with stars shining above and people watching below, there was peace. The High Priestess raised her staff. Let the joining be witnessed, she said. Rihanna stepped forward. I, Empress of the Endari Empire, guardian of 12 systems and protector of peace, offer my hand to Elias Reed of Earth. Elias stepped forward. I, Elias Reed, citizen of Earth, stand beside Empress Rihanna, not to rule over her people, but to serve with honor and loyalty. The High Priestess held out a crystal disc. Rihanna and Elias placed their hands on it. A light passed through their palms, glowing softly, the sign of unity. But then, without warning, the light flickered. Suddenly, the floor beneath the Empress cracked. A deep rumbling sound echoed through the hall. Panic spread. The crowd gasped. A section of the wall opened, and from it came a group of attackers in dark armor. Their faces were hidden, but their weapons were clear. One aimed directly at Rihanna. Elias didn't think. He pushed Rihanna aside and stood in front of her. Shot hit his shoulder and knocked him down, but he rolled quickly and stood again. Guards rushed in. But the attackers were fast. Leora screamed as one of them ran toward her, but Rhianna threw her arm forward, a blast of energy from her royal ring struck the attacker and threw him across the hall. Elias picked up a guard's stun weapon and moved with skill. He disarmed one attacker, then shielded a noble who had fallen. Even wounded, he fought like a soldier trained for war. "Protect the Empress," shouted General Kale, rushing in with loyal guards. The attackers were strong, but they were outnumbered. Within minutes, they were surrounded and forced to surrender. The hall was a mess. Smoke, broken pillars, frightened guests. But the Empress still stood, and so did Elias. Medical teams rushed to help the wounded. Elias sat on a bench as a medic wrapped his shoulder. "You should rest," Rhianna said softly, sitting beside him. "I'm fine," Elias replied with a small smile. "I've had worse." Leora stood on his other side. She held his hand tightly. High Priestess returned, her face grave. "These attackers were part of a forgotten order, the last of the Shadow Circle. We believed them gone for 100 years. Rhianna looked thoughtful. "Then we were wrong. They were waiting for this very moment." Elias nodded. "They knew this bond could change the galaxy. That's why they struck now." The High Priestess lowered her head, but they failed. "And the galaxy has seen your strength, not just as rulers, but as a family." The broadcast of the galaxy continued, even through the chaos. Billions had watched the Empress and Elias defend each other. Billions had seen Leora protected, not by guards, but by her own parents. The message was clear. This was not a political union. It was a bond made of trust, action, and courage. That evening, in the Empress's private chamber, the family gathered. Quietly, the stars outside were calm once more. Elias stood near the window, still holding the necklace Leora had given him. The crystal shimmered softly in the light. Rhianna approached and stood beside him. "Are you still sure?" she asked gently. Elias looked at her. Now, more than ever, they both looked at Leora, who had fallen asleep on a couch with a book. On her chest, "She didn't ask for power," Elias said. "She just wanted a father." Rhianna nodded. "And the people. They didn't ask for a war. They just wanted peace." Elias placed the necklace over his head and let it rest near his heart. "Then we give them both." Far away, on a hidden moon, a figure watched the news from Caltharian Prime. He wore dark robes and spoke to a group of silent warriors. "The galaxy bows to a human now," he said. "But this is only the beginning." He raised a black blade, made of crystal. "We must prepare." The others nodded. The shadow was not gone, but it had been pushed back, and for now the stars belonged to hope. Months had passed since the attack during the royal bond ceremony. The halls of Caltharian Prime were peaceful again. The galaxy was beginning to change. At the heart of this change stood Commander Elias Reed, no longer just a human ambassador, but now first consort to the Empress of the Andari Empire, and the protector of a future far greater than anyone had imagined. Though Elias wore royal robes now, he remained the same in many ways, calm, thoughtful, honest. But his days were no longer spent in silence. Now he sat in council meetings, advised in matters of war and peace, and traveled between stars as the symbol of a new alliance between Earth and the Andari in the royal garden. Elias walked slowly with young Princess Leora by his side. The girl had grown more confident. She spoke like a leader now, but still laughed like a child. "Will you teach me Earth history again today?" she asked cheerfully. "Of course," Elias replied, "but only if you finish your political lessons with the High Scholar." Leora made a funny face. "She speaks so slowly, I feel like time stops." Elias laughed. "Sometimes wisdom takes time. You'll thank her one day." Leora tilted her head. "Why do people say you brought peace? Wasn't Mother already a ruler?" Elias thought for a moment. "She was. She is. But sometimes peace comes not only from power, it comes from someone choosing to protect, not control." She nodded, slowly beginning to understand. Inside the central court, Empress Rhianna stood before a large map of the galaxy. The stars blinked softly on the screen. Next to her, leaders from 12 star systems listened as she spoke. "The Empire is not a single voice," she said. "It is a chorus. And that chorus must sing together or be lost in silence." When she finished, Elias stepped forward. He spoke simply, without long words or titles. "Earth has seen war, and Earth has seen peace. We learn the hard way, that both require effort, but when we listened to each other, when we respected life, no matter the form, we became stronger." His words were quiet, but in that silence the room became still. And then came the applause. The galaxy began to change. Worlds that had been silent reached out again. Old trade routes reopened. Enemies laid down weapons, curious to speak instead. A fight, the symbol of the Empress and her human consort, holding hands under the stars, came a sign of hope across the systems. Children on distant moons asked their parents about Earth, and for the first time in 1,000 years, flag was flown in the Hall of Stars. One day, Elias was invited to speak at Earth's United Assembly. It had been many months since he'd set foot on his home planet. As he stepped onto the stage, the crowd stood and cheered. It wasn't just for his uniform or title. It was for what he represented, a human who stood for something greater than himself. He began his speech with simple words. "I did not plan this life," he said. "I never dreamed of thrones or crowns, only wanted to serve, to protect, to do what was right." He paused, letting the words settle. "And now, I have a family not just of one world, but of many." The people of Earth watched him with pride. In their eyes, he was no longer just one of them. He was a part of something far bigger. Back on Caltherian Prime, the palace was preparing for an event, the Unity Festival. A celebration of peace between Earth and the Andari Empire. Lights were hung between towers. Food from many worlds filled long tables. Music from both human and alien cultures played together in harmony. Elias stood on a balcony, watching the celebration below. Rihanna came beside him, her robe glowing softly in the evening light. "You look tired," she said kindly. Elias smiled. "Only a little. Too many speeches lately," she chuckled. You speak more than I do now." "Maybe they just like hearing from someone different," he said. Rihanna leaned on the railing. "The people trust you, Elias. You brought calm. To chaos, you gave them something new, not a ruler, but a guardian." Elias looked toward the stars. "I just tried to be honest. I didn't come to rule. I came to stand beside you." "And you have," she whispered. They stood in silence. Below, Leora danced with children from different planets, laughing, smiling, free. Later that night, in the quiet of the royal library, Elias sat alone. He wrote a message, not a royal announcement, but a personal letter. "To the next one who stands where I stand, remember, titles do not make you wise. Power does not make you strong. It is kindness that will build your name in the hearts of others. Protect what is good. Speak for those who cannot. Stand for peace, even when peace is hard. And never forget you are not alone." Elias Reed, first consort of the stars, he folded the letter and placed it in a book, locking it in the royal archive. Years passed. Leora grew taller, wiser. One day, she would be empress. But she would rule differently, with both her mother's strength and her father's honesty. And when she did, people across the galaxy would still remember the moment peace began, when a child asked a human for a father, when an empress opened her heart to someone unexpected, and when a soldier from Earth chose not a throne but a family, and became a star that lit up the galaxy.